guys, how you doing? I'm back again with another one. This is gonna be an interesting video because I have this motherboard from a distance. You might be like, well, that's just an MSI B75A, like G45 or whatever. And this one says IE35 because it's from Japan, or I should say Taiwan. Yep, Taiwan. And what's weird about this board is it's a reissue. So it's not an original board, it's actually new. It has USB 3.0, Gigabit Ethernet, which I think the other ones did. It still has two PS2 ports, and like PCI X or whatever these are. They're not regular PCI, so I don't know why they say PCI on them. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting board. Still has two DDR3 lanes here. Still uses an LGA 1155 socket, and that's why I wanted to use this thing. And this also uses an 8, this is kind of weird. Usually this would use like a 4-pin. This uses an 8-pin power for the CPU. That is overpowered for the CPU, let me tell you what. But yeah, I thought this was kind of interesting, and I had an issue. I wanted to film this video like days ago, but they wouldn't send they wouldn't send me one of these with it, and you need one of these to mount a cooler. And yeah, they just didn't have a mounting plate. There just wasn't one on there. So I had to order a generic one, and then I was like, well, okay, whatever, I'll film it Sunday. It came in late. It came in today instead of yesterday. So I don't have my cameraman today, so I'm filming this solo, but I'm gonna try and do a build on this board and see how it turns out. Okay, so we have our Intel Xeon E3 1240 here. That's what I'm gonna be using. I already put it in there just because I, after not having the plate, I didn't feel like removing it and then maybe accidentally bending a pin, leaving it out here on the bench. So I'm not doing like a tutorial here. This is just like a fun build video, and we're gonna see, you know, what kind of performance we can get. I'll show you the parts I'm using for this sort of budget build. So this board, this reissue was like 40 to 50 bucks. This processor is like 30 to 35. I'm hoping that the BIOS will recognize it. This is actually a server chip. But yeah, this should be interesting. So I'm gonna throw this down. You know what, I should have done this before, but make sure you wear a anti-static wrist strap of some sort. Especially when it gets cold and dry, you don't want to burn your system out. By the way, if anyone is interested in a build tutorial, I'm not going to do one because I feel like I'm going to miss something. But if you do want a tutorial, I put together a playlist on my YouTube channel of all my favorite build videos. Always make sure you use just the amount of thermal paste you need. CPU fan there. Alright, I mean, cooler's installed. And for RAM, I went with a somewhat generic sort of RAM because DDR3 can be pretty expensive. So I went with this. Kind of tough to say what it actually is. It has a warranty sticker on it, but I'm not actually sure what this is. There's no brand. It's just an 8 gig. They're both 8 gig sticks. It's a kit. of 1600 megahertz DDR3. And I had gotten it for a different build, and that build didn't work out. Everything else looks pretty good. I have a GTX 970, the MSI. Is the Twin Frozer? No idea. We're going to be using a Kingston A400, 120 gig for the boot drive, and I have a hard drive full of benchmarks and games and whatever, and I keep extra software on another USB drive. But I'm going to have to install Windows from a USB stick because Windows no longer fits on a DVD. I don't know if you guys knew that, but fun fact, Windows 10 no longer fits on a DVD, which is real fun. I need a keyboard and mouse, don't I? Ah, look at that. Hey, check that out. All right. CPU or memory change, please enter. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. Has anyone ever seen this before? That is interesting. I've never seen a BIOS like this before. Let's go to, all right, system status. Ooh, that looks glitchy. Interesting. Ooh, it's artifacting. Ooh, Windows cannot be installed. Ooh. Okay, so we're to the point in the video where all the footage after this just kind of took a dive. I don't know what happened. So, up to this point, I couldn't install Windows because you can't install Windows through USB. I didn't know that, so this was the first time for me. So I ended up installing Windows on that SSD on another PC and then just plugging it in, and I was able to boot into it over USB, which is funny to me. You can boot into an external drive with Windows on it, but you can't install Windows over USB. It's just, I don't know, it's one of those goofy things. So after I loaded into Windows from the external drive, I threw another hard drive on with like the benchmarks and games and stuff like that I wanted to try out, and I used 3D Mark 11 because this isn't a DirectX 12 supported system, especially not the graphics card. So yeah, I ran 3D Mark 11. I played Doom 2016 at 720p with all high settings, and Grid Auto Sport, same thing, 720p, all high settings, because that's just something that would be considered more appropriate for this kind of hardware. And I think you're going to be surprised with the results even at 720p. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So in these graphs and stuff, you're going to see all the animations are done by my friend George. Thank you, George, and for doing thumbnails. It helps me out a ton. All right, so we're going to move on to the benchmarks, and I'll see you guys after. Alright, so those test results were kind of awesome. I know I probably should have used 1080p, like a 1080p monitor, and pushed it a little harder, and maybe I could do some overclocking in the future, because the BIOS does support it, even though the BIOS was pretty janky. BIOS does support overclocking, and I could do a video on that separately. I'm just kind of running out of time with this video, so this is kind of the end of, you know, this journey. So I appreciate everyone watching this content, and if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. If you want to see this stuff in the future as well, I'm not going to stop, and I'm still planning on doing that power supply teardown and rebuild into a Raspberry Pi case. I'm just waiting on a Raspberry Pi. So as soon as that gets here, or whenever I'm able to order one and that gets here, I'm going to start working on that video. That's going to be pretty cool, and I'm going to try to make my own video game console out of it or whatever. Who knows? We'll try to do something cool with it. So again, thank you guys for watching, and thank you, George, for all your help. I really appreciate it with these videos, and maybe I'll see you guys in the next one.